Male complainant heard 2 shots. I found a 43.
Yeah, 260. That was just east of where we were, and that's where I heard it coming from. It sounded like it was real close to where we were.
This is Hiding in Open Sight, the Seminole Heights serial shootings, a Southern confidential investigation. We've searched, analyzed, and delved into the facts, secrets, and countless pages of documents to bring you this story and to answer the burning question, why? I'm your host, Grayson Ellison. In the fall of 2017, the Seminole Heights neighborhood of Tampa was terrorized by a series of shootings. The gunman would use the same firearm, the exact same brand of ammunition, and the same mode of operation. None of the 4 victims knew the others. None of them knew the shooter or had any connection to him. And the targets were all on foot, alone, while it was dark, and apparent victims of opportunity. In all 4 cases, the gunman was able to flee and elude capture. Although as the shootings progressed in numbers, there was an increased and intensifying police presence. Located just 1 hour west of Disney World Orlando and east of the stunning Florida Gulf Coast beaches, this battle between good and evil will take us to Tampa, Florida. Tampa tops the list of the most beautiful cities in the nation with a stunning average temperature of 83 degrees. Home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Tampa Bay Rays, Tampa is a sports enthusiast dream visited by over 20 million tourists annually. Tampa boasts the famous historical Ybor City, its copious nightlife, and its lip-smacking authentic Cuban food. Ybor City has a rich history and was once considered the cigar capital of the world. But in October of 2017, the sleepy neighborhood of Seminole Heights would be under siege as the onset of the city's most notorious crime spree would force a panic over this historical suburban habitat and would dim the Sunshine State's bright sun and happy mood. Anyone who has read Lord of the Flies can expect children to grow up to be fully fledged sociopaths. But actually, the reality is just the opposite. Most humans are born with an innate moral compass and have the ability to distinguish right from wrong. So, if most people have an intrinsic value system, why then do people commit evil acts? The answer to that question can be fleeting. How a child develops is an intricate puzzle with variables such as genetics, parenting, culture, education, religion, and social relationships. A logical question that we should ask ourselves is, how did these hidden deviances go undetected? Was there an emotional escalation and rapid unraveling? In other words, did something trigger this shooter? Or did the deprived immorality take up residence in the darkness of his soul long before it manifested itself in the physical? Benjamin's demise would hit differently. He was a good person. He kept to himself, loved fashion and music, was focused, had a job, and was a student at the local community college. By all accounts, his family had raised a wholesome young man. Benjamin was about 6'2" and 220 pounds, and not a person who the average menacing villain looking for their next vulnerable victim would choose. There was no direct lighting near the bus stop where Ben was standing, and the closest street lights were too far away to provide any brightness. The shrubbery and trees nearby didn't help either. So, in essence, Benjamin was standing in the dark. In retrospect, it's logical to think that the shooter was somewhere close by, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Did the shooter talk to Ben? Perhaps ask him a question to disarm him. What if Ben was just 5 minutes earlier? Maybe, just maybe, he would have never crossed paths with the shooter or suffered the tragic fate. Ben had no reason to second guess his safety. He had done this many times before. He would take the bus on a regular basis. It was routine for him. And after all, he was just one short block away from his home.
Brand new in the last couple of hours, the reward for information to find the Seminole Heights killer, now up to $42,000. I'm Jamison Euler.
And I'm Wendy Ryan. ABC Action News reporter Ryan Smith retracing the steps made by this person of interest. Ryan, what are neighbors saying out there?
This has been key. Surveillance video captured from just a few houses away from where someone shot and killed Benjamin Mitchell at this bus stop. Tonight, that neighbor tells me he hopes his video proves pivotal for police. It's a critical clue.
When I put that together myself, I was like, oh my God.
Captured by a Seminole Heights neighbor who asked us to hide his face.
And they wound it back and looked, said, oh, here he goes walking up the street that way.
A view from above shows just how close the person of interest was from the bus stop where a killer shot Benjamin Mitchell to death on October 9th.
The detectives were unable to confirm how Ben was approached, and unfortunately, the shooter would harness this secret and take it with him to his 6 by 8 foot cell. Police would later find 2 fired SIG brand Smith & Wesson .40 caliber casings at the scene. These bullet casings would prove pivotal in catching the perpetrator and matching them to the other casings later in the story. Tampa police detectives knew right away that this wasn't a robbery. Nothing was taken from Ben. His wallet remained in his pocket. His cell phone was nearby. This shooter wasn't after money or valuables. Ben was unarmed. In an unprovoked and heartless way, Ben was shot 4 times. And 31 minutes later, Ben's precious life would slip away. Tampa police had few clues about the suspect and would find out soon enough that this reign of terror on the citizens of Seminole Heights was not over. As a matter of fact, it was just beginning.
Disclosure. This content is alleged, and the opinions of the author and creator are derived through research, news reporting, and public records, and are not intended to replace or refute the investigations of law enforcement or other relative facts. Viewer discretion is advised.
Tracking the gunman wouldn't be easy, as the residents of Tampa worked to recover from the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. Tampa had barely dodged a direct hit from the destructive September hurricane, and in an anomalous fashion, the reverse storm surge phenomenon drained the bay's shoreline, forcing the waters of the bay out to the Gulf of Mexico. It was like nothing that the city had seen before, and reminiscent of a peek into the prophetic, apocalyptic unfolding. October and November would be even worse. 4 murders within a short distance of only blocks apart. This would shake the city to its core. Tampa would go on to recover from Hurricane Irma, but not before broken hearts and senseless loss of life would take their toll on families of 3 more innocent victims. Monica was the only female victim and one who was the light of everyone's life who knew her. A person who her family says kept the laughs, kisses, and hugs flowing. Monica's coined phrase was, "You know I love you, right?" But on October 11th, 2017, just 2 days after the revengeful shooting of Ben Mitchell, victim Monica Hoffa left her residence on Ellicott Street in Seminole Heights alone and traveled on foot to meet up with a friend who agreed to give her a ride. That friend would drive from St. Petersburg to Seminole Heights to do his friend a favor. That's approximately 30 to 40 minutes in the evening. Her friend called her at approximately 8:39 p.m. to tell her that he was about 3 minutes away. Monica answered the phone, but she seemed to be rushing to end the call. Monica wasn't acting like herself and tells her friend, "Hey, I have to go." The friend would later tell police that he found that goodbye rather strange. The friend would drive to their usual meeting spot just off Nebraska Avenue. There was no sign of Monica anywhere. He would proceed to drive to Monica's house, where he honks the horn. But again, Monica was nowhere to be found. Now her friend is annoyed. This isn't like Monica. He has made the trip across the bridge from St. Petersburg to Tampa after work. But strangely enough, Monica has disappeared into thin air. What Monica's friend doesn't know is that she has become the second innocent victim of the Seminole Heights shooter. Neighbors would report hearing gunshots. The police would respond. But after the police conduct a thorough search combing through the dark streets, they won't find anything. The police see no evidence of a shooting, and even after searching the vacant lot on East New Orleans Avenue, they still won't find anything. The grass is high, it's fall in Florida, and very dark. It would be easy to miss her body. Landscapers are assigned to trim the grass of the vacant lot once a month at the intersection of the southwest corner of East New Orleans Avenue. The lot is not being used for anything at the moment and is an eyesore. The landscapers show up that morning just before 10 o'clock a.m. and are completely stunned to find a woman's body inside the brush. It's Monica. The police are called. She's lying on her back, fully dressed, wearing a red blouse and black pants. She is still holding her cigarettes and lighter in her left hand, with $75 cash tightly tucked inside. Just like Ben, her blue cell phone is nearby, just a foot or so away from her body. She was wearing multiple rings on both hands and a bracelet on one of her wrists. Once again, the police determined that this wasn't a robbery. Monica was unarmed. This is tragic. Monica has been shot multiple times, and 2 of those bullets were from behind. Although there are similarities to Ben's shooting, something about the Monica crime scene seems odd. This shooting seems haphazard and disorganized. Now, that's not to say that there is any such thing as a perfectly designed homicide, and of course, we aren't crime experts here. But all indications are that Monica may have seen the shooter and perhaps even tried to run away. That same night, a random bullet would pierce the garage door of a home about a block away from where Monica was shot. It would strike the Chevy Impala parked inside. Another bullet would hit a limousine parked in the driveway of a home near the crime scene. The police report didn't identify the exact location of the limo, but it was very close to where Monica was shot. Not to mention, police found shell casings in different locations. Several were near the roadway where her body was found. 2 more in the grass near her feet. There were a total of 5 cartridge casings that had the same markings on the head stamp of the casings and were otherwise identical in appearance, caliber, and brand to the cartridge casings found at the Benjamin Mitchell homicide scene. The perpetrator has struck again. Let's think about this for a moment. Scattered shell casings and 2 shots to the back. This has all the markings of Monica laying eyes on the shooter, attempting to escape, and ultimately being shot from behind. We would later find out that the shooter was an athlete, likely much stronger and faster than Monica. Was it possible that the shooter initially misfired as Monica tried to run away and hit the garage and car parked inside? Did Monica get the edge as she ran towards the overgrown field, causing the shooter to miss again, grazing the limo parked in the driveway? We're not sure. But what we do know, however, is that at some point, the triggerman caught up to her, cowardly shooting her in the back. The police were never able to track the shooter's exact steps and couldn't, with all certainty, determine what transpired the night Monica was shot. The truth is, no one knows for sure. There are so many possible scenarios, and just like Ben, the plot thickens. Monica's homicide scene was a short 0.6 of a mile away from where Ben Mitchell was shot. This isn't a coincidence. And once again, the shooter has eluded capture.
If you're walking alone, you're either a suspect or you're a potential victim.
Right now at 5, a killer on the loose. 3 people randomly murdered in cold blood. New tonight, police looking for this man who may hold the answers to a string of senseless crimes.
Disclosure. This content is alleged and the opinions of the author and creator are derived through research, news reporting, and public records, and are not intended to replace or refute the investigations of law enforcement or other relative facts. Viewer discretion is advised.
In Seminole Heights, neighbors look out for each other, and minding their own business simply isn't in the deck of cards when one of their own is in danger. There's no don't ask, don't tell approach, and this isn't a made-for-TV drama. This is real life, and it doesn't have a happy ending. Anthony doesn't make his way off the big screen only to win an Academy Award or walk the red carpet and sign autographs. Anthony is gone forever. He's a real victim that left a hole in the hearts of those that loved him, and tragically, he had only just begun to live his life. Since the first 2 shootings, the HART bus service shifted the nighttime route number 9 bus traffic away from 15th Street, where Ben and Monica were shot, 7 blocks east to 22nd Street. So, this wasn't Anthony's regular path of travel. And sadly, this unplanned route would inadvertently place him in the grasp of the shooter, who preferred to choose victims who were alone and vulnerable. This lethal chance encounter with the shooter would overthrow the precious life of Anthony Naiboa, who was just 20 years old and only 1 year outside of being a teen. Anthony would be diagnosed with autism as a young child, but would defy the odds and expectations. Considered high-functioning, Anthony loved life. He was creative and talented and enjoyed music, his job, and spending time with his family. 8 days after the death of Monica Hoffa and 10 days after the death of Ben Mitchell, a Seminole Heights resident is en route to her home driving down 15th Street North. She notices something on the side of the road just near the end of a home's driveway. It can't be. Maybe her eyes are deceiving her. It looks like a body. She's alone, and there are no other people around. She proceeds home, but quickly returns and can't believe her eyes. She's not delusional. It's a body. A young man who doesn't look a day older than 16 or 17 years old. Her estimate was close. It's Anthony, and he's only 20 years old. Anthony is wearing a blue shirt with no sleeves and running shorts. She stands down and doesn't come close. It's shocking. A minute or so later, the police would arrive. Since the previous shootings of Ben and Monica, the police have established a dragnet. A task force has been assigned, and the department is utilizing all available resources, or whatever it takes, to stop the perpetrator. Now, this isn't just a regular day in the field for the Tampa police detectives who were assigned to the arduous task of protecting the Seminole Heights neighborhood that had made national news. The detectives were on high alert, hoping there wouldn't be any further bloodshed. They would quickly find out at approximately 7:57 p.m. when they heard a single shot just a few streets over that this battle wasn't over. Assigned to the task force to protect and patrol the neighborhood, this increased police presence was there to discourage the shooter from returning, to provide protection in the event he did, and to ultimately apprehend him without any additional loss of life. But even with the increased number of officers in the immediate vicinity, this daring shooter was still able to flee the scene and once again elude capture. Not only was Anthony shot within a short distance of Ben and Monica's crime scene, but to add insult to injury, he was shot and left to die in the driveway of the residence where Ben lived prior to his demise. It would be easy to make the compelling argument that the location of Anthony's body was simply a coincidence. But we're not dealing with a normally rational person here. This appeared calculated and deliberate, just like the shooter's unceremonious return to the location, now for a third time, to further stain the community and to leave a trail of fear and terror for those who watched from the sidelines. Once again, the cartridge casing was a .40 caliber SIG brand with the same markings on the head stamp and otherwise identical in appearance to those recovered from the Ben Mitchell and Monica Hoffa's crime scene. Similar to the shootings before him, Anthony's wallet and keys were found in his pocket, and his cell phone was found under his body. Once again, the police determined that this shooting wasn't a robbery. Anthony was found to be unarmed. This shooter has managed to pierce the police perimeter without being noticed and get close enough to Anthony to shoot him at close range. Police now know that the shootings are linked, which is precisely why the officers were able to respond so quickly. Now, this was the first time since the shootings began that the detectives would actually hear the shots and were nearby and close enough to respond within seconds. The entire neighborhood is placed on lockdown. No one gets in or out, not until police have conducted an extensive search. They scour the streets of Seminole Heights and deploy helicopters, the K-9 team, and ground crews who go door to door. They are hoping that the K-9 named Sniper would pick up the shooter's scent. They lead Sniper east of the shooting, but as if the shooter was a ghost, he has disappeared into thin air again. Even using the city's most clever canine, the gunman has gotten away. Sniper would come up empty, and so would police. The shooter's tracks were cold, and in a ghost-like fashion, he left no trace or sign that would lead police to his capture. What police would realize next would be astounding. Anthony's body is in the front of a home that they are very familiar with, a home that they had visited before. It's the residence where Ben Mitchell used to live, and the current home of Ben's aunt and uncle, who, with several other family members just moments earlier, had left for dinner. The family was literally standing in the same driveway just a few feet away from where Anthony's body is now lying motionless. Now, I know what you're thinking. Was this perpetrator playing cat and mouse or some sick game with law enforcement? It's a legitimate question. This audacious shooter didn't care about law enforcement. He wasn't even concerned about the fact that he had gone from a person of interest to having the mantle of a serial slayer. This hunt is happening to innocent people, and this perpetrator is hiding in plain sight while cars are passing, residents returning from work, a supermarket run, or walking their dogs. This is appalling. Anthony has become the third victim of the Seminole Heights serial slayer.
Disclosure. This content is alleged, and the opinions of the author and creator are derived through research, news reporting, and public records, and are not intended to replace or refute the investigations of law enforcement or other relative facts. Viewer discretion is advised.
On the 51st birthday of Police Chief Brian Dugan, he was contacted around 4:45 a.m. with the grim news that places a damper on his special day. The shooter has struck again for the fourth time. There's no time to commiserate over spending his birthday investigating a shooting instead of blowing out 51 candles. He is 100% committed to upending the lunacy of what has happened to innocent citizens of this community. The birthday festivities will have to wait. This calls for priority number one, all hands on deck. His number one objective, apprehension of the shooter. Ronnie is tall and thin with salt and pepper hair and a goatee. He's wearing a gray shirt, jeans, and a jacket. It's chilly out on this Florida November morning, and everyone is bundled up. He arrives on his bicycle at approximately 2:00 a.m., earlier than usual, and ready to serve those who have fallen on hard times. The food pantry doesn't open until a few hours later, but people have already started to line up to ensure that they will get their portion of the food that is available to the homeless or anyone else who just needs a helping hand. Ronnie serves on Tuesday and Friday mornings. He normally shakes hands with those waiting in line, but today he gives everyone a hug, encouraging them to hang in there. Maybe it's a foreboding or premonition that something is about to happen, but his handshakes to hugs versions are different today. At approximately 4:15 a.m., Ronnie crosses Nebraska Avenue and walks toward the coin laundry. He's chatting with his brother. His brother would later tell police that he ended the call when he said he needed to use the restroom. A witness sees Ronnie walking away from the coin laundry and back toward the food pantry. It appears he may be on the phone again. Then her heart literally skips a beat as she sees a man dressed in all black and a windbreaker. He leaves the sidewalk and walks up behind Ronnie. The man is African American, and since the city has added additional lighting after the 3 prior shootings, she gets a very good look at his face. Not only that, but he stands out to her because there are very few people around, and she would later tell police that the person's walk reminded her of the videos from the news of the Seminole Heights shooting suspect. The man runs up behind Ronnie, shoots him from behind. Ronnie falls, and the shooter stands over him, straddling him, and shoots him 4 more times. This is unfathomable. The witness also tells police had they been there 15 to 20 seconds earlier, they would have laid eyes on the shooter. Chief Dugan executes, pulling out all of the investigative stops. Once again, the neighborhood is shut down. It's like Alcatraz. Any and everyone who goes in or out of the small neighborhood is vetted and documented. Police secure names and tag numbers and engage in interviewing any and everyone that they see. For a second time, the police are close enough to hear the gunshots, but are seconds behind the shooter. They call for the chopper. This version of the fugitive is beginning to take its toll on law enforcement. It's like someone pouring salt in an open wound. It's a horrible catch me if you can rendition that Police Chief Dugan isn't amused with. The shooter was never located, although the canines and choppers combed the area, searching every square inch of the small Seminole Heights community. They come up empty again. And this crime scene is within walking distance of the other 3 shootings. Those who worked side by side with Ronnie at the food pantry nicknamed him Superman. That's because Ronnie would do whatever it took to help others. Ronnie's stamina and motivation were contagious. There was never a task that was too small. This wasn't just another job for Ronnie. It was the nucleus of hope for those who struggled to keep from quitting. After the shooting, and befittingly so, the ministry renamed the food pantry after Ronnie. He is herein referred to as the Superman of service. His family and friends described him as warm and kind. And although Ronnie didn't have a Superman cape or superhuman powers, just like the real Superman, Ronnie died doing what he loved, keeping everyone else safe from the evil that lurked in the darkness. Just like those before him, Ronnie was ambushed by a cold-hearted and detached stranger. The autopsy examination revealed horrific details. There's nothing more to say. It was abominable.